So it's a new month and you all know what that means. We're doing a reading wrap-up. Hello, I'm Rosa. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. So as per usual, we're at the start of the month and that means that I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the previous month. So we're doing an April reading wrap-up today. I think I read 9 or 10 books in April, 3 of which are graphic novels, the rest full-sized novels, if you will, or just like standard novels. I don't actually know how to say that, but hopefully you get my point. Most of these I have as physical copies, but some of them I read on Kindle. And last month I was pretty spot on when it came to how many pages I read, but I didn't count it this time, so I don't know. But anyway, I think we should get started. So we are going to be starting out with my book club's primary pick for April, which was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. If you want to check out the book club, there's always a link to it in the pinned comment. Once Upon a Broken Heart is a young adult fantasy romance with some magic in it as well. This series, I think it's going to be a trilogy, is kind of a sequel to Caraval. You follow one character from Caraval and then a bunch of new characters as well. So only one of them is actually from Caraval, but he has a pretty big role in that trilogy. So I'd probably recommend that you go into Caraval before reading this one, but anyway, in this book we follow Evangeline Fox, who is very much in love with a guy called Luke. However, unfortunately for her, Luke is actually getting married to Evangeline's stepsister. And Evangeline is not really having that, so what she does is that she contacts one of the fates. Now, fates in this world are magical beings. They're kind of like, I almost want to call them gods, but not really, but they are really like caricatured fates with magical abilities that have something to do with what kind of fate they are. Jax is the Prince of Hearts, so obviously his ability has something to do with like love and such, if you will. So Evangeline is like, he can help me with this. I need Luke back in my life. I will do anything, absolutely anything to get him back. And one thing leads to another and it doesn't go so well. And that's basically what this book is about. And a whole lot of other things, but at least that's like the premise of it. So I am probably highly biased when talking about this book because I simply love this world so much. If I had to mention 3 places that I'd want to visit from my books, this world, I have no idea what it's called actually, but this world is without a doubt on that list. Stephanie Garber's writing as well is very, like, it's very easy to read, easy to digest. It's not too fluffy either, and it's very whimsical and cute and catching as well. I really like it. We got a lot of questions from this book that aren't necessarily all answered, because this is the first in a trilogy, so that is something to keep in mind. I'm looking forward to the second one so much because I really enjoyed this. Jax is also, like, yes, I love him, okay. I can't help it, that's just how it is. As a character, I just find him very fascinating, so anyway. Because you never really know where you have him. Like, I'd probably say, personally, I wouldn't want to work with him, but I just don't want to take the chance. I think that's it. But yeah, very much enjoyed this one. It should also be a pretty quick read because it's 400 pages and it is YA, but it's just a very cute, whimsical little, not little because it's quite tall, but read. Yes. But am I frustrated that some of those questions were not answered? Very much so, because the sequel isn't coming out until like September, I think, around that time at least. So we're months off still, and I need to read it. I need my hands on it right now. As for my book club's secondary pick, they actually chose 3 books total because there was a tie between the second and the third. However, I'll get to that. But one of the secondary picks was Only a Monster by Vanessa Len, which I read during my 24-hour readathon, which I do on a monthly basis basically. Super healthy. But very much fun and worth it. This is another young adult fantasy, but urban because it's set in London. We have monsters, paranormal vibes. I would almost want to call it magic, but like powers maybe. Some historical fiction too. And complex, how do you say this? Our lead girl is the monster in the story. She's not the hero, as it says on the cover. In every story there is a hero and a monster. She's not the hero. In this book we follow our lead girl whose name is Joan, and throughout her childhood and teen years she's been constantly told by her grandmother that her family is actually monsters, and she's just like, oh, you're so funny, grandma. What are you talking about? Monsters don't exist. Which, I mean, fair. I'd probably say the same if my grandma had said that to me, but anyway. But then one day, after an altercation with a gentleman on the street, she finds herself time traveled half a day ahead. So she's standing in the spot during midday, and then suddenly it's night. And she's like, what the heck is going on? Where did my half day go? She also missed a date because of it. She's very confused. Her family immediately knew when she came back that something had happened here, and they all started to tell her, well, we're monsters, we can time travel. However, their ability depends on taking time from normal people. So this man, she basically took half a day of his life, stole it, and time traveled with it. His life will end half a day earlier because of her. So in that way, they're actually the monsters because they can steal time from people. One thing leads to another, and our girl Joan is kind of in a hot mess, to be honest. Like, just to set it straight. In a hot mess, she finds herself having to time travel back in time. There's something about a monster hunter who's the hero in the story. There's something about a rival family of monsters as well. And I think that's all I'm gonna say, to be honest. If you want to hear me talk a little bit more about this book, I will make sure to link I think I'll link it up in that corner. Yes, my 24-hour readathon, but this was very, very enjoyable, very unique. The whole like premise of it sounded so interesting going into it, and I feel like it was very well executed. This is also a debut, which is something you need to keep in mind. However, it was very well written. I did read part of this when I was really tired though, I do have to say that. Because my judgment when I'm very tired is kind of questionable at times, but I feel pretty sure that this is a good book. That sounded so convincing. No, but honestly, if you read reviews on it, it's a pretty good book. I would say that a lot of people agree with me. It's very unique, very well executed, and I really, really enjoyed this. Plus, it was very cool trying to read from like the villain's point of view as well, because she's really not a hero. Like she's kind of battling with herself a little bit, but I mean, that's to be expected, but she's not the hero, and that was very interesting. So, Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. Also looking forward to the sequel to that one. That'll probably be out in like a year, so I got some waiting to do, and that's fine. My patron's third pick for April was This Woman Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi, but I only have one copy of it, which is a special edition, and it's way too gorgeous for me to bring anywhere, so I haven't actually had time to read it yet, but I'm counting on doing it here in May. Just wanted to tell you, because I did not have time to read it yet, and it actually bothers me a lot. But anyway, let's talk about some of the books that I read on Kindle. I like to swap between fantasy and contemporary, so I picked up From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. It was actually the first book that I read last month, so it feels like a while ago, but actually feels like a lifetime ago, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, but this is an adult contemporary romance, and as per usual, Mariana Zapata is basically the queen of slow burn, so it is most definitely that. But also an enemies to lovers, a bit of like a workplace romance, and just very, very charming. It's also a very, very hyped book, especially lately. I wanted to read it back in wintertime, but then just never got around to it, so I'm really happy that I did it now. Anyway, but in this book we follow, forgot her name, but our lead girl who is an ice skater. Is that what you called it? She does ice skating, like figure skating? Is that what it's called? Anyway, you can either do that like solo or in pairs, and our lead girl is definitely a pairs kind of gal. However, she's been having some issues finding a new partner after her ex-partner dropped her, but she's not ready to give up her dreams of figure skating because she really loves doing the sport. So at the center that she trains at, there is this guy called Ivan Lukov, and he's basically everyone's like dream. He's amazing. He's also a bit arrogant. He's a bit of a douche. Him and our lead girl don't get along at all, but one thing leads to another, and Ivan finds himself without a partner too. So him and his manager basically pull our lead girl to the side, and they're like, we want to partner up with you. And our lead girl is like, no, that's not happening. I hate you. But she thinks it through. you know, takes a day or two and then decides, you know, let's give it a try. I hate you still, but let's give it a try. And that's basically what this is about. Like I said, this was so charming. I adored it. It might be my, yeah, it's definitely my favorite Mariana Zapata book by now. It has the kind of like, it's not a rom-com, but it has like rom-com vibes to it. It's definitely not a rom-com, I wouldn't say. I feel like rom-coms have to be a little bit more lighter than this. And I've talked about Mariana Zapata's books here on the channel before. If you are into adult contemporaries that are a little bit more on the serious side, I would definitely recommend checking out her books because they're just kind of, like I said, this one has rom-com vibes to it, but it's not a rom-com. It's too serious for it. I don't know how else to, like, it's too realistic in some way. She writes adult contemporary romances that are just, they're so slow burn and realistic. I don't know what else to say. This one, I think I actually ended up giving either 5 stars or very close to it. I adored it. It was so good. I ate it up as well. It was a lovely read, so would highly recommend it if you're looking for a little bit more of like a serious adult contemporary romance that still has laughs in it and also a lot of insulting each other. Just be aware of that. A lot of it. And then on my Kindle as well, or on my iPad, doesn't matter, I also read Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I actually read volume 1 to 3 during my 24-hour readathon, although two of them were off camera because I'd kind of gone to bed. These are young adult contemporary romance graphic novels. There is now also a Netflix show, which I've not watched yet, but I'm definitely planning on watching it. And these graphic novels give me all the feels. I think I ended up giving the first one of them a 5-star, and I'm getting ahead of myself because I have not told you what they're about at all. So in these novels we follow Nick and Charlie. Charlie is this like introverted, shy kind of guy. He's also kind of been forced to come out as gay, even though it wasn't like, I don't think he wants to keep it a secret, but coming out like the way that he did wasn't what he wanted to happen. He's also been going through some stuff at his school because of this, and it's not been easy for him. And then we also follow Nick, who is this bigger guy. He's a bit of an extrovert. He's also a jock. And the two of them are introduced, I actually forgot how. They're introduced somehow, and it's basically about them getting to know each other, becoming friends, and then eventually becoming a little bit more than friends. And it's so cute. I don't know. It's like warm and fuzzy, funny, but also sad and touching at the same time. They touch on subjects that may be a little bit sensitive to some people and maybe a little bit triggering as well. So we got some serious subjects thrown in there too. And I feel like that's also important for a series like this actually. It's a bit of a coming of age, coming out story as well, I would say. And they're good. I don't know, if you're not even into graphic novels, still read them because they're worth the hype. They're worth getting a Netflix show, even if I haven't watched it yet. But they're worth it, so I would highly recommend them to anyone, to be honest. I feel like anyone could read them. So yeah, Heartstopper volume 1 to 3. I've not gotten to 4 yet. Not yet, but I definitely will. So it's gonna happen tonight, maybe. I don't know. So we got 4 more books to talk about, but one of them is the trilogy. So I read the Aurora cycle, the whole trilogy by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. This was picked for me for my TBR by my patrons as well. I like them helping me out sometimes because I'm a very indecisive person, so thank you. I don't even know if you can see them anymore. The Aurora cycle are sci-fi books, young adult, space, adventure, aliens, romance. I would definitely call this, or at least I think I would. To be honest, I'm not smart enough to make this distinction. I don't know enough about it, but I feel like this is a bit leaning on fantasy sci-fi, which is probably one of the reasons that this was a good read for me as someone who's not very acquainted with sci-fi books. But in this trilogy, we follow a squad. So I don't want to say too much about them individually, to be honest. It starts out with a guy called Tyler who is training to be a squad leader. He can't fall asleep the night before these it's almost like an exam. It's their last day. It's before they get to pick who goes in their squad, but he can't fall asleep. So what he does is he goes on a spaceship by himself, flies it into space, and then just like goes for a flight, a ride in space. That's how I'm gonna phrase that, yes. On this little trip in space. This feels so weird to say. moving on. He comes across not a shipwreck, but a space shipwreck. But there's an abandoned ship, and his radar is telling him that there's a survivor on board the ship. And Tyler is a good guy, so he obviously can't leave this survivor alone. He decides to save them. And this person is Aurora, who you can see on the cover right here. She has been asleep for 200 years. She was supposed to have gone to a planet. She basically went on a spaceship from Earth and was supposed to go to a planet in space. I wanted to add, but that's redundant. Where else would this planet be? Whatever. Because of that though, because of his heroic action to save Aurora, he is late to his exam and to pick his squad members, so he's stuck with a squad of misfits, people that nobody wants to be in a squad with. That was a weird way of pronouncing with, but we're gonna go with it. So his members end up being himself, Tyler, his sister Scarlett, their mutual friend called Kat. Scarlett is a very extroverted kind of charismatic character. Kat is the pilot. She is very sarcastic. They also end up with, I forgot your name now, Cal, who is an alien. I don't know if you can notice, but he has pointy ears. There he is. Yeah. He's the warrior of the team. We also have Finn, who is a bit of a smart mouth. Is that how you say that? He's also the gearhead, so he's very good with he's a bit of an engineer. And we also got Zila or Sila, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but she's the brains, so she's supposed to monitor their health and stuff like that. And she's incredibly smart. I feel like phrasing it like that is a bit of an understatement, but she's incredibly smart. And I love all these characters. We also have Aurora, who's a bit of a mystery girl. We don't really know what's going on with her, except that I'm not going to tell you because it doesn't say in the synopsis. But just know that this squad ends up in a bit of a situation and basically find themselves with a massive weight on their shoulders because they may be the only ones who are able to save the world. So these books were so funny. I read the first two so quickly, and then I did the 24-hour readathon between the second and the third, actually while I was in the middle of the third. So it took me a little bit longer to get through that one, but they were so enjoyable, so funny. Yes, I loved this trilogy so much. It actually makes me want to read Illuminae very soon. I will say my favorite part, because the whole saving the world, kind of been through that in some other books, but the best part about these books for me are the characters, because they are so unique to themselves. They're a bit like caricature, so I guess they're not really that unique, but in this book they're so thoroughly fleshed out. Their personalities are just so different from each other, their interests, their abilities, skill sets, and whatnot. And then seeing them kind of work together, becoming better friends, eventually becoming a little bit like a found family situation was just so nice. That's my favorite part of the books. Them basically getting to know each other and all that stuff. I loved that. That was so good. So I highly recommend them as well if you're trying to get into sci-fi, because they were very easy to read as well. However, we'll say despite them being YA, there may be some raunchy jokes in there, just a little bit. I don't mind, I'm an adult, but if it's important to you, I thought I'd just mention it. So, and then the last book that I read was actually the first book that I read in my 24-hour readathon, and that is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is a young adult fantasy, horror, thriller, mystery kind of book. I think those are the genres that I'm gonna go with. So in this book we follow Olivia, who is, I believe the term is mute. She can't talk, so or at least with her voice, she communicates via sign language. Her parents are dead, so she's been living at a girls' school for a while. She hates it there, she wants to get away, and then one day she receives a letter from her uncle, which basically summons her to his estate called Gallant. And she's like, yes, finally, my ticket to freedom. So she arrives there and actually finds out that her uncle has been dead for years, and she doesn't really get the warmest welcome from her cousin. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there. It's very weird, and her cousin is just rude. Let's put it like that. He's rude. There are some helpers though that are kind of introducing her to the area, and they also tell her of a few rules, such as you may not leave your room at night, and you may never cross the wall that you can see from the house. Do not ever cross that. Ever. And while she's at Gallant, she starts to learn about her family, and there's some weird stuff going on. There's some ghouls that she can see just casually. Yeah, that's a thing. Forgot to mention that. She can see ghouls. And I think that's all I'm gonna say, to be honest. So I liked this. Definitely recommend reading this in one sitting if you can. It's a very short book. It took me 3 hours or something. It's 300 pages, but there's 50 pages of something. So it's more like 250 pages. So it's a very cute, not cute, horrific, scary, ghoulish kind of little read, but it was very enjoyable. Not my favorite V.E. Schwab book. She's definitely written some that I enjoyed more than this one. However, still very much enjoyed this. If you're looking for a horror that doesn't take too long to read, I would recommend this actually. So yeah, I think that was some of my books. It's been a pretty good reading month, like content-wise, I would say. I haven't read anything that I didn't like. I've read something or some books that I loved. So I would say it's been a successful month. If you have read any of these books and you like them or you didn't, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to hang out and nerd out and talk about books with me and everyone in the comments as well, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. But that is all I got for you guys today. There'll be more content up on the channel very soon. I am currently actually recording a reading vlog as well, so you got that to look forward to. But as for now, I'm gonna wrap it up, so I hope you all enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one. Bye!